Twitter, Instagram, you know, well, yes, I know Snapchat, yeah, I know that one very well. So, you know, the problem I have is, have you guys ever Googled yourself? Have you ever Googled your name?
Yeah, and a fact.
What's that?
A fact. A lot of stuff comes up.
Yeah. So, honestly, I just want to give you warnings. Do you guys talk about this? No? Yes?
No.
Good. So, I can't give you enough warning in terms of what you put, like your digital footprint, if you will. People like me, I'm going to go on the internet. I'm going to find anything I can find out about you in advance of an interview, okay? And if you have inappropriate stuff posted on the internet, you're not even going to get the phone call. You're not even going to know that I was even considering you for the job, okay? And wouldn't you do the same thing if you were in my shoes? Wouldn't you try to find out everything you could about a person before you would even consider applying, you know, interviewing them for a job, right? So if you haven't Googled yourself, I would really encourage you to do that and see what's out there on you. Also, when it comes to your social media sites and stuff like that, make sure you have it restricted so only your friends can see it, okay? But even then, you need to be careful, and I'll give you a quick example of this, is we were doing a recruit for a company, and it was a hard recruit. We could not find a person. I finally found this woman for this job, and she was awesome. So I went home that night, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, hey, I found this awesome person for the job. And my wife was like, oh, that's great, what's her name? And I told her her name, and she's like, oh my God, I know her, I used to work with her. And I said, oh, really? She goes, yeah, I'm Facebook friends with her. And I said, oh, you are? Can I borrow your computer real quick? And she's like, sure. So my wife gives me her computer, and now I have her Facebook account up in front of me. And I noticed that during that particular workday, she made 12 posts on her Facebook account while she was at work, right? And a couple of them, oh, by the way, just so happened to be slamming her current employer while she's at work, right? So again, this woman never even got a call because I'm not going to consider somebody for a job when I know they're doing nothing but, you know, making social media posts all day long, okay? So just really want to warn you guys about the internet. The internet's awesome, you know, I mean, it's changed our world, but just be very cautious because, as a recruiter, I'm going to use it as a tool to find anything bad or good about you that I can. So you can manage that yourself, get ahead of it. You know, don't wait until you're starting to apply for jobs, or I guess even apply for colleges. I would imagine they would do this to colleges, would probably do the same thing. To look up and try to find dirt on you guys. So, anyways, questions? Any questions from the group? No, I know.
It doesn't just have to be about exiting or resigning, guys. It could be about anything because he's an HR professional. He can answer a lot of things that I can't, because he works in recruiting.
All right, well, great. You're going to let me off easy. I bet you have. I figured you had a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
One thing that I know I don't know a lot about because, I work in a job where my salary's set out and I can't negotiate it, is like when you're getting hired for something, when's the appropriate time to talk salary? That might be helpful for these guys.
Yeah, that's a very good question. It depends on the job, of course, but in terms of when is a good time to talk about salary, certainly not, because this is usually what happens. You're going to apply for a job, you're going to send in your resume, somebody's going to send you an email saying, hey, you seem like a good person, can we schedule a time to chat? So then you're going to schedule a time for a telephone interview. That's usually the first thing that happens. During the telephone interview, a good recruiter is going to ask you, what are your salary expectations for the position, okay? Because if I'm a recruiter, I'm doing a recruit for a position, I don't want to get to the interview process or the second interview process only to find out that you want to make $10,000 more than what I can pay you for the job. So a good recruiter is going to ask you that during even that phone screen process, or if not the phone screen, during the first interview, okay? So I think you should be prepared to answer that question in terms of what the salary is for the position, right? And what I would say that you should do is do some research on it, okay? There's Glassdoor, there's salaries.com, you can go on, I think Indeed has a site, a portion of their site where you can look up average salary. So the answer to your question, if somebody would ask you that, what are your salary expectations for this job? you know, and if I was, did you say Ethan? Noah. If, you know, so if I was Noah and I was asked that, and, you know, so if I asked Noah that question, hey Noah, what are your salary expectations? A good answer would be, Noah would say, well listen, I did some research, and it appears as though the average salary for a concrete porter guy is between $15 and $20 an hour. I'd be looking for something that's consistent with what the market's bearing for that position. That's a good answer to give. But what if they say, what do you want to make? You know, or they don't ask you that. Let me rephrase that. They don't ask you, and you want to make sure. I would certainly wait until the second interview. I would wait until things are further along. You don't want to be one of the first things out of your mouth is how much does this position pay? You know, asking that question, it's like, is that the only thing this person really cares about is money? You know what I mean? So I would wait. At least not, you know, if you're in an interview, I would save it for the end. If the person doesn't ask you, you should ask them. Can you tell me what the salary is for this position, or is there a you know, some type of a salary scale for this position so I know what to make? But it's not. It shouldn't be the first thing out of your mouth, right? Because that just turns people off.
Anybody have a follow-up on that?
Well, how do you go about asking for like a raise once you're already hired?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question, because I can't do that either. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, you know, I would say this, okay? So let's say, for example, you know, well, it's hard when you're right out of high school, because when you're right out of high school, you're just getting your first jobs. You really don't have a lot of negotiating power typically, okay? So right out of school, you know, what I typically tell people is when they are applying for a job is, you know, a good time to negotiate money, once an employer, like what's your name? Amanda, okay, so let's say I've done a recruit, and, you know, this recruit, I may have had 50 people apply for the job. I've narrowed it down to 15 people that I talked to on the phone. I brought in 6 people for interviews. I brought in 2 people for second interviews. I had Amanda meet with 5 other people, and we all are in love with Amanda. Amanda's are, yeah, and what do you want to do for a living, Amanda?
Medical field, not exactly sure.
Okay, all right, so Amanda wants to be a nurse, you know. So Amanda decides she's going to be a nurse, and she applies for a nursing position at the Reading Hospital. And we've fallen in love with Amanda, you know, and they offer Amanda $30 an hour to be a nurse, right? Well, a way that Amanda, you know, I always try to encourage people to ask for money up front, okay? Because once you're in a job, it's so hard to get money, you know, after you're in, okay? So, you know, what Amanda could say to the Reading Hospital is, gee, listen, you know, I'm interviewing at 2 other hospitals down in the Philadelphia area, and they're offering more in the $33, $34 an hour range. Is there anything you can do to get me closer to that? Because this is really where I want to work, you know? So now, let's say you're in that job, and, you know, you take that nursing job at the Reading Hospital, and then in 5 years, you know, you get another offer from another hospital to make, you know, $5 an hour more, okay? So now you're going to go to the HR department or your supervisor, whichever, you know, the company policy is. And I wouldn't just walk in and say, I want to make more money. You know, you got to do it based on data. You know, you got to do it based on, okay, so listen, I've been here 5 years, and I noticed you just hired people making the same amount of money that I'm making, you know, but yet I've got 5 years experience. Or, gee whiz, you know, there's hospitals in the Philadelphia area that are advertising for $38 an hour, and I'm only making $33 an hour. Is there anything you can do to help me? Because I really would love to stay here, but it's becoming too difficult for me to, you know, what I usually say is when the gap between what you're making now and what you could be making becomes too great, you become a flight risk for that organization, you know, so that's a good time to ask, you know what I mean? But data driven, again, go on some of those websites and some of those things, and if you can justify your raise, ask for it. Do it professionally, do it politely, and what's the worst thing they're gonna do? They're gonna say, sorry Amanda, we can't give you more money, but as long as you do it in a professional way, the worst thing they're gonna do is say no. right? And then oftentimes what'll happen is, you'll go take that offer at the the Philadelphia place, making $3 an hour more, and the Reading Hospital will counter offer and say, oh, no, we'll pay you what you want, because we want you to stay, assuming you're awesome, which I'm sure you are.
So if you're gonna ask them, should you, like ask to sit down with whoever your supervisor is in person to ask them for the raise, or should you email them? What would be the best way to do that?
I would sit down in person. I think an in-person would be the first, but again, I would have data in hand to support your decision on, your request. I mean, it depends on the scenario. I mean, some organizations might say, Amanda's charge nurse of her nursing unit probably does not have the authority to give her a raise, so she probably should let her charge nurse know that she's going to go talk to the HR department about it. It all depends on the organization. Some organizations, there's a corporate headquarters where the only way you're going to be able to get a hold of that person is by sending an email to, some HR dude in a, remote spot. So. All right.
Any other questions from you guys?
Anything
before I
else?
ask him one more, 'cause I have one more for you guys.
Sure.
Okay, so the one thing that we didn't really talk about was what to do after an interview while you're still in the interview process.
That is a great question.
So we talked about cover letters, and we talked about how to apply for a job, but we didn't necessarily talk about while you're in the middle of an interview process, what you should be doing.
All right, this is a great one. All right, how much time do I have? Do I have 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes.
All right. So again, I like telling stories. I think stories are good examples of how you get jobs. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about my wife. Okay, so we already talked about my wife. She was a popular gal today. She's on an airplane on the way to Florida right now, I might add. So lucky her. But anyhow, so my wife wanted to get a job working for Albright College, okay? And even though we're business partners, we thought, gee whiz, I have twins that are here, and then I have an 8th grader right now. So about 5 years ago, my wife and I are like, wow, if one of us could get a job working for a college, our kids' college tuition would be free, okay? So we started looking around, and my wife found a position at Albright College, okay, as an HR person. Now, my wife worked in the not-for-profit sector. She worked for an organization that provided housing for people with disabilities in Lancaster. So she was in the not-for-profit world, but she was trying to make the switch into higher education, okay? Most industries are very homogeneous. I'm not sure that's the right term, but that's what we call it, meaning that they don't like to hire from outside, okay? They like to hire from so really, Albright College, they were looking for somebody who was previously an HR director at another college, right? But my wife really wanted this job, so my wife applied, okay? Now, in the ad in the newspaper, it said we're looking for an HR rock star to run our HR department, gave all the requirements, yada, 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 okay? So, apply electronically, okay, which is what happens all too often, is it's apply to this electronic link to apply for the job and upload your resume and yada, yada. So she did that. But in addition to that, she printed off a hard copy of her resume, okay, on fancy paper, and made it look nice and signed it. And then she included 4 packages of Pop Rocks. You know Pop Rocks, the ones that make your mouth all pop, right? And she included 4 packages of Pop Rocks in her letter. And the title of her cover letter was Your New HR Rock Star, right? And then in her letter, she explained why she's so awesome. And then, oh, by the way, as you're reading my resume, please enjoy these Pop Rocks, for your new HR rock star, right? So she did that, okay? Kind of weird, right? But she knew it was a long shot for her to get the job. So she didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks. And she was like, what the heck? How could they not have called me? Look what I did, So she sent a follow-up letter saying, hey, what gives? I mean, I really want this job. You really need to at least give me an interview, right? Then she had a friend of a friend who knew the hiring manager's email address. So she got that email address, she did her intel, and she got this person's email address, sent him an email, right? And then she sent an email to this guy, and then she said, top 10 reasons why you should consider interviewing Kim Hubric. right? Sent that to him, okay? A week later, she gets a phone call from the hiring manager, and the guy says, look, I don't know who you are. You are certainly not qualified for this job based on what we're requiring.